I remember being a teenager and playing Baldur's Gate for the first time, thinking I was so excited about this grand adventure I was going to go on. I thought to myself, finally, games are living up to my vision of what a real adventure can be.
Right around this time, Nintendo had released The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and although that was very different from Baldur's Gate, both games gave me the first taste of exploration in games I was craving and just blew my young mind. It's about this time when I realized I wanted to create something like this one day.
But there was one problem with my first game. Even though I poured my heart and soul into it, even though I spent hours developing every little detail, the game just wasn't fun. Something felt off.
I realized that despite my passion for world building, I had no real understanding of game design principles. I didn't know the why behind what makes games engaging, satisfying, or even playable. And only after being deep into learning Unreal Engine did I understand that making a great game requires more than just cool ideas. It requires mastering the game design fundamentals.
Concepts that, when properly applied, will elevate your creations to the next level.
These are the 10 basic principles of game design that I use when making games today.
Let's start with the first principle, the objective. Every great game has to have a clear goal for the player to achieve.
This goal gives the player purpose. Without it, a game becomes aimless and players lose interest fast. Take Super Mario Bros. For example. The goal is simple. Get to the flag at the end of the level. In The Legend of Zelda, it's to defeat Ganon and save the kingdom. And in Tetris, well, the objective is to clear as many lines as possible without letting the blocks pile up. What's important to retain here is that a clear goal equals player motivation.
In my first attempt at making a game, I didn't clearly define what players were meant to accomplish when I started designing my world. I realize now that I was working backwards. I thought to myself, I'll create a cool world and I'll add stuff to it later, only to realize when the game eventually stalled that I should have outlined my core mechanics and general game rules first, and then added the levels later. Which brings us to our next point.
The rules. Rules are the backbone of any game. They create structure and define what the player can and can't do. Without rules, there's chaos, but with them, you get meaningful decisions. In chess, the rules dictate how each piece moves. In a platformer like Celeste, the rules define how high you can jump or when you can dash. Rules limit the player in a way that makes overcoming challenges possible and rewarding.
I made a mistake with my first game by not defining the rules because consistent rules create trust between the game and the player.
Through trial and error, I eventually stumbled on creating a Souls-like dodging and stamina fighting system, and that became my first mechanic. But what I should have done first was establish a core loop. The core loop is at the heart of every game, and it's a repetitive series of actions that define the player's interaction with the game. This is the core gameplay loop, what players do over and over, the thing that, defines the game. In many ways, the gameplay loop is the practical application of mechanics in motion. Take Stardew Valley, for example. The core gameplay loop involves planting crops, harvesting them, selling them, and then using the profits to buy better equipment for more crops. This simple loop is satisfying because it's clear, repeatable, and rewarding. Or think about the jump in Celeste, or the swinging mechanic in Spider-Man. These mechanics aren't just about the action, they represent what the game is trying to make the player achieve. A good mechanic will challenge the player to get better at it, but it has to be fun at its core.
A strong gameplay loop is driven by clear feedback and meaningful results.
Every time the player completes a loop, they should receive feedback that keeps them engaged, whether it's leveling up, unlocking a new ability, or simply seeing progress. This reward structure ties directly into player feedback and progression systems. Like in Hades, the loop of clearing rooms, gaining upgrades, and dying leads to progression in the story, which keeps players invested in repeating the loop. A game without proper feedback leaves players feeling lost. Feedback lets players know when they're doing something right or wrong.
Whether it's that satisfying clink when you deal the perfect blow or that subtle vibration you feel when you take damage, feedback keeps players in the flow.
Flow is essential in maintaining player engagement by balancing challenge and skill. If a game has a natural rhythm and keeps players in the flow state, they'll be immersed and motivated to keep playing. A lot of good Metroidvanias do this perfectly by gradually ramping up difficulty to match the player's growing skill. For example, in Ori and the Blind Forest, you start with very few abilities, and as you move through the world, you find more and more each time, and you have to learn how to use the new ability properly to escape the room you found it in.
But here's the trick: balance. Too hard and the player gets frustrated, too easy and they get bored. So you want to keep the player in that sweet spot where they can keep learning and improving without feeling like the game is unfair.
Balance ensures that games remain enjoyable and fair. In competitive games, this is even more important. If one character or strategy dominates, other players feel cheated. Balancing my games was something I underestimated and honestly still do. I think it's one of the tougher aspects of game design to master because without proper balance, the difficulty is all over the place. Too hard in some areas, too easy in others. I did a full video on game balancing. If you're interested to learn more about it, I'll leave a description in the comments below.
Games are full of decisions, and great game design encourages players to weigh risk and reward.
This principle creates tension and makes gameplay meaningful. Decisions must have consequences. In Hades, players constantly choose between short-term power boosts and long-term survival as they push deeper into each run, making every decision feel important. In my latest game, Runes of the Abyss, I aim to give the player a sense of freedom of choice by placing important objects like armor or weapons in view in the same room, but technically far apart, separated by long corridors, requiring the player to explore different routes to reach them. The catch is that a random battle might occur at any time, adding a layer of pressure. This forces the player to make strategic choices. Sometimes you'll have to choose between two rewards because going after both could cost you dearly.
This tension between risk and reward plays into my philosophy of exploration, where every decision creates meaning.
Meaning in game design goes beyond just giving players choices. It's about creating experiences that resonate. When a player feels that their actions, decisions, or interactions have significance within the game world, it creates a deeper connection. A meaningful game experience can emerge from the story, mechanics, or even small moments of discovery. The Last of Us offers players moments of deep emotional connection, not just through major plot choices, but through the quiet moments of exploration and interaction that build a meaningful bond between the characters.
When a game is filled with meaningful moments, players will always be immersed. Immersion is what pulls players into the game world.
Whether it's through narrative, visual design, or mechanics, immersion makes players feel like they're truly part of the game's universe. Take, for example, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild's open world and how it feels alive with dynamic weather, rich environments, and a sense of exploration that captivates players for hours on end. This sense of immersion is vital because it lays the groundwork for the ultimate goal of any game. If players feel immersed in the world, they're more likely to enjoy the gameplay and simply just have fun.
Finally, this is it, the most important principle of all: fun. Games at their core should be enjoyable. Now, fun is subjective. It could be the thrill of competition, the joy of exploration, or the satisfaction of solving a tough puzzle.
Just remember, your game doesn't have to be fun for everyone, but it should have a clear idea of what type of fun it's offering and who your audience is. As we've explored today, these 10 principles aren't just abstract ideas, they're the foundation of great game design. Whether you're creating a simple puzzle game or an expansive open-world RPG, understanding how to craft meaningful goals, provide impactful feedback, balance risk and reward, and immerse players in a rich, interactive experience can make the difference between a good game and a truly unforgettable one. Now let's do a quick recap. First, start with a clear objective and define the rules that shape your game world. Then, create engaging core mechanics and ensure there's a satisfying game loop supported by strong feedback. Keep players in a state of flow with balanced challenges and make them weigh risk and reward. Infuse your game with meaning, craft an immersive world, and above all, make sure the experience is fun for your target audience.
Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into game design. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think makes a game truly fun? What game design principles do you consider essential? Let me know in the comments below.
This is it for week 1 of my new game design course. If you made it this far, I assumed you found value in this video and would love a like, a comment, and to see you stick around every week for future courses as well. I'll see you in the next one.